recording, yeah.
There
Absolutely.
it is. Okay.
Thanks. Welcome everybody. It's great to see everybody. This has become a really great little Monday ritual, and I have to say tonight's event is one that likely would have been canceled. You probably can't see the blizzard out my window, but those of you who are in New York know what's going on. Like over a foot of snow today at least, right? And one of the advantages of this is that we can kind of keep this going, and it's wonderful to see Star Black. She is one of the original creators of this series from back in the 90s. So I would say that this is year 24, season 47, episode 4, KGB Monday Night Poetry. We're going to just keep it rolling until we can actually get back in the bar, hopefully. Um, we have, it's Star Black Night. So we got this. Star, do you remember this picture? Let me get out of the way. Thankfully, it cuts my eyes out because I look like I'm half asleep, but this was always one of my favorites from inside the bar. Hopefully we get back. And I will pass it from there over to Jada Gordon.
Hey, good evening, everybody. J.P. Howard's poetry has a relatable quality that I deeply admire. This epiphany came to me as I read her book, Say Mirror. Her ability to display her experience finding her voice through her mother, who broke barriers as a brown-skinned African-American model, was a unique look at self-discovery. Her words praise, love, and expose the journey of self-reflection and identity, and in turn, introspection. Whether discussing identity through mother-daughter dynamics or Black lives, J.P. Howard's poetry consistently accomplishes what it sets out to do, raise a mirror to the reader as she does for herself. The imagery and storytelling pulls us into the reflection and makes us look at the truths within ourselves and the world. J.P. Howard is a Cave Canem Graduate Fellow. She is the author of Say Mirror, a debut poetry collection published by the Operating System, and a chaplet, Bury Your Love Poems, Here, Belladonna Collaborative. Say Mirror won a 2016 Lambda Literary Award finalist in the lesbian poetry category. She has received fellowships and grants from the Estrella Lesbians Writer Fund, the Brooklyn Arts Council, and the Lambda Foundation. Her poems and essays have appeared in the Slow Down podcast, the Academy of American Poets, a poetry journal, Anomaly, the Feminist Wire, Split This Rock, the Pantla, a journal for queer poets of color, Muzzle Magazine, Adrian, a poetry journal for queer women, the Best American Poetry blog, Myopsias, Mom Egg Review, and countless other publications. Howard currently serves as the curator for the Women Writers in Bloom Poetry Salon. J.P. Howard was born and raised in New York City. Ladies and gentlemen, J.P. Howard.
Thank you so much, Jada. Yay! That was beautiful, beautiful intro. And so glad to be here with KGB on this snowy night in New York. Lots of snow out my window. I'm sitting right next to it. So thank you for mentioning Samira. So let's see if y'all can see it. That is my mom on the cover. She was a famous African-American model before I was born. So this was like in the 1950s. So I kind of grew up with this very big diva personality as a mom. And I was an only child. She was a single mom. We're both Leos. So all the drama that comes with that. So anyhow, I'm just going to start by reading some poems from there, and then I'll go into some poems that aren't in the book. So I love to write praise poems. Praise poem for today. Praise the first poet you ever read. Praise Mama who asked you to recite her favorite Margaret Walker poem to church ladies at Abyssinia every Sunday when you were in elementary school. Praise sound of your voice then and now. Praise your inner child and her will to live. Praise Mama's cycle of sadness. Praise all those tears you shed. Praise that couple who cried when they heard your Trayvon poems. Praise Black boys you rap in stanzas. Praise sons who live on through candlelight vigils. Praise your shattered past and your unknown future. Praise sweet sound of words on your tongue before they stain the sheet. Praise poets who split themselves open to save lives. Praise all the poems you don't want to write but will to save your own life. Praise secrets that burn the page. Praise ex-lovers who will never die as long as you write. Praise beauty of a new poem pushing her way to surface. Praise her shape on the page as she unfolds. This next poem is for any Leos that might be out here listening. This is called When Your Mama is a Leo Diva. This is sort of a list poem, a fun poem. 1, you can't help but be a diva yourself. 2, sometimes she forget she a mama. She never forget she a diva. 3, she will tell you you're the most beautiful person in the room. You will believe her. 4, at 90, she's still fine and wears ruby red lipstick when she enters a room. 5, she will never forgive you for cutting your long hair nearly 25 years ago. 6, she will tell you how gorgeous every new haircut looks on you, followed by, despite the fact you cut your beautiful hair decades ago. 7, she will teach you the art of self-love and self-care before you go to middle school. 8, she will not learn how to cook until you leave for college and have no regrets about serving you shake and bake all those years. 9, she will be your biggest advocate and sometimes your greatest obstacle. 10, she will love you even when you have stopped loving yourself. And let's see, I think I'm just going to do another praise poem for here before I move on to some poems that are outside of the book. I love to write praise poems. I love to teach praise poems. And many times it's just talking about the complicated parts of our lives, how we can kind of celebrate and acknowledge all of that and find those to be praiseworthy items. So this is praise poem for the journey. Praise the therapist who told me 20 years ago, you are not your mother. You do not have to be your mother. Praise the years I spent wanting children, yet afraid to repeat mama's mistakes. Praise my child self who took care of mama every time she passed out. Praise my adult self who feared the burden of caretaker yet again. Praise my intellect for recognizing my fears and facing them head on. Praise my therapist who let me talk out my fears all those years, long before I wrapped myself in this mama cloak that fits so well. Praise my mama who did the best with the skills she had. Praise the divas who are sometimes forced to be mamas and the mamas who give birth to divas. Praise them all. Shower them with love and affection. Praise my sons. Praise the first male children born after 3 successive generations of women. Praise their lean bodies growing up each day towards manhood. Praise spark in their eyes. Praise their keen intellect and their giggles that fill my heart. Praise this calm my child self never knew. Praise the mothers who love from up close and from afar. Praise our children who we tuck in each night and those whose names we wrap in prayer, no matter where they lay their heads down to sleep. I'm going to now read some other poems that are not in the book, hopefully in the next manuscript. So this one is sort of a kind of a fun one. A love letter to the decades I have kissed, or notes on turning 50. Dear 10-year-old Juliet, remember, mama wouldn't let anyone, not even your favorite dance teacher, Mrs. Carter, shorten your name. Mama said no abbreviations of Juliet's name are permitted. Thank you very much. I loved when Mrs. Carter called me Jules, a glittering diamond of a word in her mouth. Demi-plie or pirouette Jules, I would turn, twirl, pale pink leotards floating across the room. When mama left the room, Mrs. C would whisper in my ear, Jules, keep making magic, child. Kiss the dance teacher who made your name a precious stone. Dear 20-year-old JP, remember the hippie poet from California who came to Barnard for a poetry reading your sophomore year and seduced you with her smooth poet words. She whispered in your ear one night, when you graduate, come to me, baby. Remember how you showed up at her doorstep in San Francisco, the look of shock on her face. She felt bad, all those miles you traveled, and let you stay in her apartment that summer while she moved in with her girlfriend. Remember how you fell in love with San Francisco, the Castro, those women's bars and bathhouses, 35-year-old Tosca, scent of her leather jacket, ripping through you as you rode towards Twin Peaks on the back of her Harley, Janet Jackson and Pleasure Principle on full blast. Kiss the poet who left her door open for you that summer. Dear 30-year-old player JP, Remember all the exes you invited to your 30th birthday bash? Only a Leo would do this crazy shit. Your best friend tease. Remember the drama, how you craved it, the women, how you craved them. Some nights, two, three at a time. We only live once, you told yourself. Remember the lover who finally said, you can't have me and all those women too. I want you, but I don't want to share you. Remember how much you loved her, how much you wanted it to work, how scared you were of your decade-old patterns. Kiss the lover who stayed, especially when you were scared she would leave. Dear 40-year-old Juliet Pearl, remember you tried so hard to have a second child. You didn't want your firstborn to be the fourth generation of only children in your little family. Remember your lover's hands gently guiding that needle, the fertility treatments, the look of worry on her face after that last IVF. Remember the surprise party your lover gave you on your 40th birthday, belly round with promise of baby. Kissed your lover who stayed by your side for a decade. Dear 50-year-old JP poet, remember the last decade and decades that came before, giving birth at 40, then your MFA a few years later, and all those poems. Celebrate your lover. She is still here. Two decades into this relationship, 20 and 30-year-old Juliet would have never guessed this could happen. Remember ups, then downs, that rare illness that almost took your lover. Remember your boys growing up like beams of light, black boys shining, circle of love growing, poems everywhere. Kiss your reflection in the mirror, celebrate her, write her a love poem. This next one is called Hi Bun for the little girl, thank you, who lives on inside. She was always so quiet. Some days people forgot she was in the room. So cute, so sad. Look at those powder puff pink velour bows in her hair and the two perfect braids falling down her back, they whispered. Some folks thought she was exquisite. Others felt sorry for the child. She heard everything they said. She held so much inside. Inside, she held secrets. She held summer close to her heart, especially in dead of winter. She would close her eyes and remember summer. She was running through hot sand. She ran like a gazelle, so thin, so graceful, running from beach cabana to dip tiny hot toes into cold ocean. Each time she would pirouette when she reached the shoreline, twirling until those waves made her lose her balance. Nothing would ever replace that feeling. Hot sand, cold waves, twirling as if she hadn't a care in the world. All those tears she shared with the ocean, no one ever knew, not even her sometimes. Shed your tears here, child. Lay them at the ocean's floor, then let yourself float. This other poem is a pretty recent one I wrote, and I was basically thinking about memory and if we didn't remember ourselves, and maybe to write a poem to our future self. What would I say to myself, right? If I didn't remember that person. So this is what I would say. Dear future self, if I should ever forget you, this is my love note to you. You were loved. You were somebody's lover. You were loving. You held all parts of the women you loved somewhere deep in your generous heart. You were heartbroken. You were a heartbreaker too, girl. Sometimes you were heartache. Your heart never grew heavy though. I remember that about you. You were silly. You were giggles. You were somebody's mama. You always wanted to be a mama. Mama was the greatest title you ever had. You were jealous as fuck. You were selfish. You were sad. You held other folks' sadness, especially mama sadness. You buried hers deep in your heart. You were a swag girl, Leo charm and confidence. Couldn't nobody crack you up as much as yourself. You were cute and you were vain. You wore lipstick under your mask during a pandemic because you were cute and you were vain. You loved your family. Your lover loved you for decades. Sometimes you would ask yourself, how I get so lucky, girl? You loved people. You were at home on stage in front of a mic, sitting with community in a circle, or talking one-on-one with a friend for hours on end in a coffee shop. You were a poet. You are a poet. This is your love poem to yourself, Jay. Let's see, this one is a newish one too, thank you. This is called How Many Shades of Pink Can I Hold On To? And thank you so much for having this forum to share lots of new stuff, so I really appreciate that. This is a shadow poem of a poem I once wrote about the color pink. What I said in the original poem was all truth. What I said in that old poem was mostly lies. This poem is a flashlight staring down my old poem. Pink was the saddest color of my past. Pink is the brightest color of my future. Mama loved me in all shades of pink, magenta, blush, fuchsia, flamingo, even salmon. She liked when I twirled in pale pink pointe shoes. Puree, pirouette, Juliet, Mama said, and I would spin like a little ballerina wind-up doll. Mama mostly loved dolls. She collected vintage miniature baby dolls with matching layette sets, usually in pink, soft, pale pink, pink so pale it was really white. Some days Mama thought I was her doll. She tied each of my 2 perfectly braided long plaits in pastel pink polka dot velvet bow tie hair bows. I remember now, those were my favorite. Let's see, and this one actually, I like to usually share this one. It was from the book, but I always say this is an offering to anyone who's going through a difficult time. If you know someone who's going through a difficult time, this is my offering to you. What to say to a friend who wants to give up? Say, I love you, even when you can't love yourself. Say, please, please, not today. Say, too much life unlived. Say, mirror. Say, beautiful. Say, this arm. Say, take this arm. Say, grab. Say, hold. Say, let tears fall. Say, tears heal. Say, forgive your mama. Say, she did the best she could. Say, tomorrow. Say, sleep. Say, split seconds. Split the seconds. Say, let the seconds turn into days. Say, today. Say, tomorrow. Say, sun. Say, warm. Say, skin. Say, warm skin. Say, sunlight. Say, new day. Say, breathe. Say, inhale. Say, exhale. Say, not today, baby girl. Say, so much life to live. Say, love. Say, I love you. Say, hold on to love. And I can't have a reading without reading a poem, sort of thinking about Black boys, thinking about raising Black boys. That's on my mind a lot, all the time, really, as a mother raising 2 young Black boys in this country. We beautiful Black boys, and this is written after We Real Cool by Gwendolyn Brooks. And a lot of you will know that poem. We beautiful Black boys, we got so much poise. We look like grown men. We keep coming to an early end. We got mamas who keep mourning. We just want to see a new morning. We smart and get good grades. We rise early and study hard. We still got cops asking for ID cards. We wear hoodies and travel with friends. We tired of being seen through same old lens. We want history to stop rewinding, repeating. We don't want to be a part of senseless beatings. We need our brilliance to be widespread. We got to keep moving ahead. Let's see, I'm gonna do maybe like 2 more. That's good. Okay, cool. Let's see which ones I'm gonna do. Okay, this is a poem for Black women. Ethery for Black women. Black women, we be trying to hold worlds on our backs and our hearts without fail. Some days we fail at perfection. Black girl magic is a mask we pull off when night comes. Alone in our world, weight off our backs, we exhale. Alone heart, we whisper in pillows, wet with our tears, our untold secrets. We breathe without our mask. We sit still in our silence. Some nights we float on crescent moons. Black girl magic shining under stars. We gather our pieces before daylight. And then I think I will just gonna find this one to read. Okay. And this one, I'm part of a writing group called Elma's Heart Circle, and we've been writing together for years. So this is dedicated to 2 of those poets, LaConte Dill and Cheryl Boyce Taylor. It's called This Heart Holds So Much. I guess it's like a list poem. So I'm gonna end with this poem. This is my last offering. This heart holds memories. This closet filled with old journals, this poem from my first lover, this album full of family photos, this snapshot of my 2 sons shining like the sun, this saved voice memo of my mama when she was in hospice, this tear I wipe away, this memory, this sadness, this missing of mama's voice, this voice of mine, this confidence that sometimes surprises me, this bold Leo ass, this lover that greets me every day, this love that has survived 20 plus years, this magic, this Black girl magic, this hard work, this touch that still makes me feel sexy, this aging, this reflection, this humor that makes me laugh out loud at myself, this mothering, this fear for my Black sons, this love that has no end, this mama pride for a Black boy shining, this queer love, this life out the closet, this pride, this reflection, this heart bursting with life, this new manuscript filled with new poems, this love of praise poems, this sister circle, this open door, this new poem, this heart holds so much, y'all. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm gonna let people unmute themselves again. Oh, thank you. That was really great. All
you.
right, so
Thank
we'll
you.
take a little break and I'll do the fundraising for KGB spiel. So now is the time if you need to run out and grab a drink. I always need a little more drink. As you know, we're hoping to get back into KGB and it looks closer and closer, but it's not easy. And so while we've been locked down, KGB is one of those places that really has lost all of its income because it can't be opened. So if you'd like to go to the KGB Fundly site, and I always like to show you this, you can give at these levels. So for $15, you'll have 2 drinks waiting for you when you get back to the bar. For $25, you'll have 3 drinks. And you can see how much goes directly to the employees. You can share it when you make a donation. If you get all the way up to patron, which I don't think anyone has yet, but we're still kind of hoping. If you have $50,000 lying around, or if you want to liquidate your retirement savings in favor of supporting KGB, you will get a $45,000 bar tab. So if you think about the return on investment,
It's pretty good.
Sure, right? Like it's $50,000 that you're donating to KGB, but you get a $45,000 bar tab. That's not so bad.
It's almost free if you really think about it.
It is. It's free.
Something
Like if you if you donate that $50,000, it's like tithing. You'll just get it all right back.
if you're walking down the street and you find that suitcase full of cash from Fargo or something like that, this is definitely the smartest way to spend it. $45,000 worth of booze at KGB bar. When we'll all be there waiting for you. But beyond that, yeah, they definitely, most restaurants and bars, and we make this point every week, have been able to maintain some level of income because they can open up sidewalk seating, which is sort of fascinating to watch because now there are all these like enclosed plastic bubbles, which actually do seem as indoor as anything else, but it's still a way for restaurants to kind of make money. KGB can't do that. It's an upstairs bar. It doesn't have any sidewalk. There's really just kind of a total loss for them. So even a couple bucks, whatever. And
And I have you're seeing the Venmo thing, right?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So here's the Venmo. If you just want to donate, however much you would have spent on a drink tonight, however much you would have, kind of like that Venmo is right there. If you just want to make, sort of whatever it is that would be meaningful for you to give to KGB to support the wonderful bar.
And we're holding out hope for a September launch in the actual bar, but obviously we have no idea really.
John, are you half vaccinated yet?
I am not half vaccinated. Are you? Did you get it?
I am. I'm half vaccinated.
I wanted to ask, is it possible if we can buy like stocks or shares of KGB?
That'll
We can keep you guys up and keep us afloat.
We should see if we can get like a KGB IPO.
Yeah. Publicly.
How's your Reddit game, Jada?
Reddit seems scary to me. I've always been curious, but Reddit seems so scary.
Yeah, imagine that. We could run KGB's stock. They already got the ticker, obviously, just KGB. Just run it up to $413 a share like GameStop. Right?
Yeah, we could do that.
Donations from people that don't care about poetry, or you get a lot of people buying KGB stock that don't care that much about poetry.
Well, I mean, now that I feel like I will never be like, I'm looking forward to about 10 years from now when I can't because like right now we're all sort of like, wait, Amanda Gorman got a modeling contract and she's reading at the Super Bowl, which is fantastic. I'm totally thrilled. But I'm looking forward to when I have to explain like, that was not like when I was majoring in poetry in 1998. Poets didn't get modeling. Like I wasn't thinking about becoming the face of Lancome. Like that wasn't really like.
I mean, it's more like you can just kind of do whatever you want in this era. Well, not like I don't want to be shady and say
No,
that.
but it's
But
wonderful.
like you can be like, a model, but you can also have an OnlyFans, or you can also be, whatever you want to be.
You know what it makes me think of, like, seeing this one headline. Do you guys know who the comic T.J. Miller is? He was in that show Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
He had a few years ago, he had some surgery or something for like a brain aneurysm or a tumor. There was some brain surgery. And he actually, apparently after that, he believes that he died on the table and what he's living in is in the afterlife. Like, I'm starting to believe that it's true and we're all just living in that because when it would, like, this headline that I found on CNN, or I took a picture of it when I saw it, young poet emerges as sensation at inauguration. That would have been on the top 10 list of things. Like, any young poet in the headline on CNN, you know what I mean?
I wrote an essay about inaugural poems in 2012, and I was reviewing it because I hadn't looked at it in a long time. And actually, the entire introduction is about how angry I was that when Elizabeth Alexander read, they cut away. Like all of the news, like it was basically like, oh, the inauguration's over. Elizabeth Alexander is reading, but we're just going to cut to video of people leaving their seats. I was like, what? Yeah. And I was so mad, like, by how the inaugural poem was covered. And like now it's the complete opposite. Like there were only like three real, like, I mean, there was the Garth Brooks, the Lady Gaga, Amanda Gorman, and what? Oh, and J-Lo. Yeah. Like it was a very like, and like poetry was like right in there and huge.
The Republicans have never had a poet read at their inaugurations.
Is that true? Wow.
Well, Dana Joy is the only Republican poet. I shouldn't say that while we're recording.
The only Republican poet?
Yes. Well, he did a very good job with the NEA. I mean, that's why he was the head of the NEA during
That sounds like a book. That sounds like a book. Totally I think you gave him a title for a book. The only Republican poet. Mic drop. Like, oh God.
You guys remember that poem that guy? I think he had an alias and everything, but he wrote that like that ballad of Donald Trump after Trump was elected.
Who?
Oh my gosh.
It was like Son of MacLeod, Jixer Mullane. It sounded like Scotland.
It was like Longfellow or something. It was sort of like
yeah, it was it was I don't know. It was you looked at that thing and you're like, who wrote you? Somebody who actually, understands craft wrote you.
Well, ISIS poets are very prominent in ISIS. Like, I mean, there are other kind of like, like, I mean, poets are very progressive.
Shout out to the ISIS poets.
What?
Shout out to the ISIS poets.
I'm not shouting them out. I'm just saying that poetry in different parts of the world serves very different functions. Like, I mean,
yeah.
Isn't Frederick Seidel a Republican?
I should not have started this.
We're still recording.
Kind of thing that I always say after we stop recording. I've dug myself
called The One Republican Poet I would buy.
Yeah.
But Dana Joy did a very, very good job of raising, within the Bush administration, he got more money for the NEA than anyone had ever gotten before. And he was very, very savvy. And in fact, Laura Bush, being a librarian, was a really big deal. And they were actually able to get a lot of money for the arts, in part because Melania Trump's not the librarian.
I mean, didn't like George Bush also reach out to Sharon Olds to read, and she like sent a letter back like no?
So what happened was, I think in 2002 or 2003, right? It was right after the Gulf War invasion, Marilyn Nelson and Sharon Olds, and I think there was one more person, were invited to a symposium on Langston Hughes, and it was Langston Hughes, Walt Whitman, and Emily Dickinson. And Marilyn Nelson had a specially made peace sign scarf that she was going to give to Laura Bush as a protest against the impending Gulf War.
Ooh.
And on finding out that this was going to happen, there was this whole like press release about how poetry shouldn't be political, and the whole gathering was canceled. And it was like, wait, you're saying Walt Whitman? You're having a symposium on Walt Whitman, and you don't want things to get political. Sure, that'll work. But yeah, it was canceled, and there was a huge event at Yeah, Sam Hamill had the whole like Poems Against the War. And then there's a huge event at Lincoln Center that was Poets Against the War. And there's like this huge kind of like poetry outpouring of that Sam Hamill was really kind of like the spearhead of, and kind of around, was that Copper Canyon? Was that Copper Canyon Press? Around the Poets Against the War. But you've had enough time to go refresh your drinks and go to the bathroom.
And buy stocks of KGB bar.
Yeah, and make a donation to KGB. And we're gonna come back now with Star Black. So it is my pleasure to introduce Star Black. So for 24 years, you have been enjoying Monday night poetry at KGB because of Star Black. In the spring of 1997, when the East Village was still the East Village you've heard about, along with David Lehman, she started a Monday night series in a little bar that didn't even have a sign outside of it. I've been told that they actually had to put the sign outside because no one could find it. It was very East Village. Like, oh, you guys don't remember like back when you couldn't find anything in the East Village because nothing had signs? So it used to get me very, very upset. Anyway, in 1997, she started a Monday night series in a little bar that didn't even have a sign outside. For nearly a quarter century, nothing has stopped Monday night poetry at KGB. Not the Florida recount, not 9/11, not the financial crisis, not Hurricane Sandy. And now, as we trudge through the pandemic, we are even impervious to snow. If my count is correct, I am giving Star Black her 47th introduction to welcome her to the podium, which is now virtual. And every single one of those times, Star has knocked it out of the park. Star is one of the most interesting and formally innovative poets writing in America. She's the author of 6 collections of poetry, most recently The Popular Vote, and she teaches in the MFA program at Stony Brook, Southampton. She is responsible for 24 years of Monday night poetry. Please welcome Star Black.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being here, and thank you all for keeping the series alive. And it was wonderful, JP, to hear your poems, especially the person that's struggling and how love can heal. And you know, it's strange. New York is so beautiful. It's a very rare thing. When it snows, it's just snow just falls over everything, and it's a beautiful experience and a rare experience to be in the city in a snowstorm that's like this, which was one of the very best. It's not too cold out, it's not too windy, the snow is lovely, it accumulates 12 inches. It couldn't be a more beautiful snowstorm, but it brought back what we were talking about, because history is history. And I wanted to read you this poem from experiencing 9/11. I think that what the city is going through now has been very hard for all of us and a lot of people who are gone. And so I want to read my 9/11 poem because it has snow in it. It's called Perfect Weather. The sky was so clear, the morning beautiful, the weather fair, neither hot nor cool, the tower aflame far down the avenue, a white smokestack seen at eye level, a huge multi-alarm fire firefighters attend to, and then, like the descent of chalk on a blackboard behind all that is remembered, behind the mind, behind the apprehended, a sight without reference, the building ended. The next burned as a thick candle, and then there was no candle, and everyone was quiet, and the traffic ended, and the tunnels closed, and the trains stopped, and the phones were busy, and the children showed up, finally, and there was no snow like long ago, no beautiful snow. So many walked and did not talk, all dressed for the office. There were no offices, all dressed for construction. There was no construction. The bus drivers drove until there were no buses. Those who talked could not say much. All talk was on television. Nothing was rushed. Midtown was quieted by a formal mutation between what will be and what was. What was a cafe. What was clear water. What was a supermarket with so many shoppers. The cashiers as busy as the cashiers one remembers. And the clarity of air, that too was familiar. But now it was all that was there. Trapped desks in a dark cloud, rising in the clarity of air. Gosh, heavy, right? I just wanted to read a couple of women poems that I wrote earlier too, in honor of JP, who does so much work in the female community. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I like to, I teach Ovid, and it's so interesting in Ovid, which is not unsimilar to today, that these, the very pretty maidens somehow get squunched by the system. And in Ovid, Medusa was, a maiden who was raped by Poseidon, and then that infuriated Athena because he raped her in Athena's temple. And so Athena turned her hair into snakes. And then, like other women, like Anne Boleyn, she was beheaded by a hero, and Anne Boleyn was beheaded by a king. So somehow I was addressing this because women have a hard time, and I wanted to evoke Medusa to help me out. It's called Gorgon. Medusa, tangle me in snakes, turn lakes to stone, fish to jade, marble my moods, decapitate my pain, enslaved by swords, whipped by the brawn of heroes, and cast a yowl into fear, breath cloud of mirrors, so that my face recedes into interiors of now, freed from misconceptions of your image, cast through time like iodine, swallowed by my sex, as if to apologize for defeat. Then let me be as the turned cheek of the Nazarene, meek, untroubled, loving, for we have seen too much chivalry, the violent sham of victory, beheaded, hoisted above, drenched battlefields of frightened eyes. And I just wanted to read, because the world's so violent now, so I'm sort of sorry to say, kind of my mother, you spoke of your mother. My mother had this great idea that rather than war, if two nations have conflict, each nation gets together and picks one warrior and sends that warrior to represent the nation that they're fighting with. And the same thing with the other nation. These two warriors meet and they agree, the nations agree, that whoever wins that battle wins the war. And her idea was it's cheaper and there's less life lost with her method. It was like select a representative and fight wars that way. So this poem, I do want to just mention one. You talked about the anthology after the Jason, Sam Hempel's anthology on the anti-war. Well, I wrote a poem, a 3-line poem, an anti-war poem, and it's before I read this other poem, I'd like to just interject my anti-war poem. Of course, at the time, George W. Bush was doing this invasion, right? So he's mentioned, if Hitler had been a better artist, if Reagan had been a better actor, if Bush had kept on drinking. So it would have been different. This also addresses war, and it also addresses a female figure in mythology. It's called Lust, and it's about the Sphinx. The Sphinx slinks above the blonde commotion of dust, her eyes disinterested stone afloat starkly. She too will reach the jibbed rock's velocity, its rising throb. She was created for her death, defeat by mammal, the mammal's swollen feet. She was created for her trick, its cleaving question. Man and beast meet in the riddle, daunted, doomed. She is monstrous on her thriving perch. Her ears hurt. Solve me or die, warrior of Thebes. I am Nietzschean. I am destiny. In a matter of minutes, she was gone, a simple Simon hurled toward stone, a lioness exposed in emperor's clothes, easy, until Nietzsche reversed the roles and cleaving armies attained the claw's perch. No more one-to-one. I just want to say it is a sad time for my generation, and because we all were friends, and Richard just read here, and now he's gone, and you know, transitions. So this is a poem about the other side of time. There's chronological time, but the heart doesn't have a clock. As far as the heart is concerned, chronological time is limited, and people love each other far, far beyond their lives here with us. So we're all carrying many people in us, and they're alive in us. So this is called Intimate. Funerals of friends backhand consciousness, twisting fresh air into a nullifying clock of time. Though you who are nowhere around me are close as aftershave brushed against my ear, as if someone still in pajamas lived here, read the paper in an armchair nearby, like a wake robin in a pot outside, still blooming. The calendar needs a flip side, eternal assuming, something grander than the minutia of spent time. It needs a wherewithal address that doesn't include semblance to make days more than headlines. You are my private affirmation, my trace in the sand, my stay in touch, extraordinary man. That was a friend that I loved. And I think that poetry is the bridge, is the great bridge. That elegy is just so important to poetry, keeping people we love with us. Okay, I'd like to try to share with you a sequence of short poems I wrote when I went to Chile a year ago. And it's funny, the US is going through such trauma right now, very, very hard times. And Chile, like everywhere, there's the 1% and the 99%. So a year ago in Chile, when I was there, I was attending an avant-garde poetry seminar. And it was the first time I'd been there, and it was the streets of Santiago were filled with anti-police graffiti, because in Santiago there were massive protests every night for one reason. The government raised the subway fare by 5%, and people who were in the 99%, you know, it was just this breaking point that happens in every country when it just breaks. And every night there were protests in Santiago, the time I was there. And the graffiti was, the police in Santiago had already blinded 200 people. They had lost their eyes with these rubber bullets, you know. So I just like, I have to explain the other background. The collective of poets in Chile were teachers, scholars there, and they were working on projects like essays of books on silence in visual art, or essays of books on writing in visual art, but writing that doesn't have a meaning. It's, you know, it's just script. It's like artistic writing. It doesn't lead to words. And they called their collective of avant-garde poets the Office of Nothingness. And I just thought that was just so wild. The Office of Nothingness. They were just this really interesting, and people in Santiago, you know, most of them were in their 40s, and they were teaching and writing poetry and publishing scholarly works on art. And when I was there, I was reading one book by one Chilean poet of the 20th century called Vicente Huidobro. And he was a surrealist, a Chilean surrealist. And he moved back, he went to Paris, moved back to Chile, and wrote this one great book about a bird, Altazar. And it was a poem that just was 100 pages long. And the poem ends, it breaks into sound alone. Altazar is a bird and represents Chile and the poet. And so I was reading this. This was just an experience. So I just want to share these poems. They're a little surreal, but somehow what we've going through here in America is going through, other people have been going through everywhere. Not quite the same, but somehow the same. So whenever I mention Huidobro, I'm alluding to the poet, and Altazar, I'm alluding to his poem. So I just want to end the reading by reading a few of these poems. Dark Double. The baffled city of self is a no-no, a snag. Huidobro has elsewhere to go. The heat drips on an Eskimo in January. Only the primordial baptism of stars cools. 1,000 airplanes fly above the hungry. The chasm of answers is mute. In the office of nothingness, the messy hair of loneliness stops. Raucous sapphire. All forms bleat until across the street, bullets retreat back into the guns of assassins. Altazar waits on the crosswalk under a bird's nest umbrella. It is hot. The countryside wants water. Cities wet and dry at the same time. A lady harp kisses a glance. In the office of nothingness, invisible lanterns etch lambs. Devolution drag. Serenity in snatches grieves. Nebulas of anguish rattle the night. The sun caught in fissures of cliffs, cliffs that do not compromise. Takers take, takers keep, takers lie. Silence slips into an abyss of time. A weaver falls on a feather. Vagabonds say goodbye. In the office of nothingness, space has 4 legs. Broken moorings. Wolves with microphones feel at home on Fox, a washing machine of urgent chatter. The overpopulation of sleepwalkers takes too many notes to read. Old statues of generals and masters half preen. History a shipwreck of torn up votes. The eagle is hypnotic and nasty. In the office of nothingness, ships sail free. A rhinoceros in a muumuu. Flowerism puts a spin on early death, snapshots of the missing, yet no one stops Hidobro's pin from nailing itself to heaven. Powdered butterfly wings drift between bonfires. The beach is a flower, the surf equatorial, dawn a flush of fish beyond a boundless scaffold. In the office of nothingness, patience is variable. Miserly heights. A Damien Hirst diamond football seems fitting for an aerial burial. A catastrophe of veils or the beautiful madness of globe-trotting collectors, their perfumes spectacular. Anonymous bedrooms bloom on the gliding hydrofoil, each caress celestial. In the office of nothingness, the pulse has a fever. I'm gonna pause because I don't know if this is the first time I've read it. So I thought that maybe I would go back to some more familiar poems, if that's okay to conclude. All right, what do I have? I wrote a sequence of poems last year, early in the year, in which I tried to tackle something that Montaigne said. I read this wonderful quote: "To begin depriving death of its greatest advantage over us, let us deprive death of its strangeness. Let us frequent it. Let us get used to it. Let us have nothing more often in mind than death." That was by Montaigne, and I spent the early part of last year at an art colony doing nothing but musing on this topic. And it occurred to me, if I was really going to think about it, that what we experience that we think of as death is the end of life, which is very hard to go through. But we never really know what death is, because death we cannot experience because we're not alive to experience death. So I envision death as a kind of ubiquitous loiterer out there surrounding us that doesn't really have to do anything but wait. And that it's either instantaneous or it's through great pain beyond our last breath, but we will never know what it is because it doesn't really exist. It's just after we exist. So I tried to circle around this topic, and I finished this whole sequence on this topic, and then they threw us out of the colony I was staying in because it was COVID. So it's like, I wrote this series on death, and then suddenly death was everywhere. So it kind of canceled out. It sort of made whatever was going on was very real suddenly. And so here's part of it, part of the series. I'll just read a few in the end of the series. The experience of death as non-experience, deep dong. Without plans, death copes. It knows neither cruelty nor hope. It lulls like a sissy beyond sun-perfected larvae in the midst of a soft stampede of scythe blades. A pickaxe thunk, it's not swishy. It uncoils in flea motes. Its map is a prank. Then I saw it as a sort of creepy egalitarianism. It's called Infinite Drone. A hillock rustic as cream corn, burbles above, bones of the wronged. Death everywhere at once doesn't judge. A miasma of syncopation. The useless tectometer doesn't morph into anything. It's a lockup of staying power. And death as waiting out urban diminishment. The blank portrait. Dying cities expire slowly. They cloud, swap industries, values for publicity that is too loud. Once rambunctious, they slump, blinkered, top-notch achievers, far too few. Death spins kitten yarn in a corner of Alborada, a telenovela. Never to step in too soon, it's foxy. 100-year-old soldier bows in a fishbowl of bigotry. Oops, what was once a titmouse is a rotunda trophy. The situation is dire. Death goes to Mexico, drops out. It can't be speed dialed. Then as we get older, this is called fortitude. The end of ambition, how liberating. Overthinking subsides to incremental bird bath robins and other things below an increasingly low ceiling. Urgency, its status jockeyed race traps, its lip syncs its sorcery upon the young. But how can that be when everybody is young? It can. 7 years of basement tax returns do not belong to everyone. Trojans on hot nights turn gray. When you're offered a seat on the subway, you know it's bad. And this is Death in War. It's called Fatigues. When you shooby-doo, you shooby-doo back, wan sniper, to pick off a few durian vendors selling cheesy fruit in open-air markets. But guess what? You can't snuff out everyone at once just yet. The climate hasn't changed enough. It's been shoplifted by puffed up scouts who don't acknowledge weakness. Yes, sir, frontmen. Death, if you were even remotely interested, you drop your mesmerizing eyepiece and get out of that ridiculous costume you hover in. And I'll just read two more. This is when you're contemplating death, the last breath, the demise of flesh, bone. Your whitish willows seldom have it wrong. There's no screed in the snow that blurs furs, only two snowshoes that hike alone in the smithereening world. And when night falls, snow gets cold, firs disappear with the willows, and even brooding blacks, imploding conundrums can't elude, like Theseus, the labyrinth, because there is no minotaur. Darkness is voiceless, fearful. Unendurable air rises like water as you stand there, bellless, enclosed by all you know. And then I might have read this earlier, but I just want to end the reading on this poem. Finally, you give up your whole project of looking at death and you go back to what starts everything, which is love. Consoled. What was love was amplitude, your generous kindness that gave me room, not to be cornered by the clatter of yes as a freelancer, but to unwind into gentleness with one whom I trusted, cared for my aloneness, even if my heart was trapped within and didn't know how to love. I always wanted to see you again in any or every season, breathing, not eavesdropping before sleep. The comfort of your company was home for me, my only home. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, this is such a wonderful reading. And we'll be back next week. The link will continue to work all season with Henri Cole and Vijay Seshadri. So you'll definitely want to be here for that one as well. I'm going to stop recording and then we can talk amongst ourselves. Oh, the other thing I should say